Before disliking this video or leaving a nasty comment, please hear me out on this. This is not going to be a pro-Trump or a pro-Hillary video, even though I have already expressed my opinion about both candidates. This is going to be a video merely analyzing each candidate's campaign strategy, and I'll be revealing my prediction for who I think will be the president of 2016. Again, this isn't going to be a video advocating for either candidate, but just analyzing their campaign strategies. So without further ado, let's roll the intro and get the episode going. Yo, Liam here back with another episode of Minecraft Survival Games. Today we play on the map, that's Survival Games 3, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2016 US presidential election, and I am predicting that Donald Trump is going to beat Hillary Clinton for the presidential position. Even though the polls say Hillary is ahead right now, I believe Donald Trump is just going to edge it out. I don't think it's going to be a large margin he wins by, but I do think it's going to be enough to make him the President of the United States until 2020. Now, you might be wondering, Liam, why are you saying this? The polls are saying that, hold on, wait, I want to go northeast. Ah, dang, it's all the way over here. I went the wrong way. Okay, so you might be thinking that's a dumb pick, but I want you guys to hear me out on what I'm about to say, okay? So I'm going to go through a bunch of history stuff, and I'm going to be analyzing their campaign strategies at the current moment, so I can further explain why I believe my prediction will come true. Okay, so this isn't... The first thing I'm going to say is very, very minor, but I think it's something worth mentioning. For about the past 50 years in the United States, the Republicans and the Democrats, neither party has controlled the presidential seat for more than 2 terms. So that means that, basically, since Obama has had it for 2 terms, it's more likely that a Republican is going to have it now than a Republican would have 4 years ago, if that makes sense. So it's just something worth noting, but I don't think that's going to be the thing that decides the election. So, let's get into some other stuff. Even though it isn't entirely confirmed that it's going to be Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as the nominees because neither national convention has happened yet, we basically know that this is going to be the case. If either party ran a different candidate, I think that party would be taking an automatic loss. So I think both parties are going to stick by their candidates. Okay, so now I want to get into each candidate's path to clinch the nomination. So I'm going to be starting off with Donald Trump because he got his nomination before Hillary Clinton's. So Donald is obviously a weird candidate. He's not your average Joe from Washington that you'd see running for president. When he first started, everyone thought he was just running as a joke, but a couple months passed by and people began to wise up and realize that no, he's serious. He is actually trying to become the president. So once people started taking him seriously, he began to gain a lot more momentum. He performed very well in the debates, and he took out his biggest threats one by one. His threats being, of course, Jeb Bush, who was going to be the likely nominee from the start. Then he took out Rubio, and then finally he took out Ted Cruz, who were all his 3 major threats. He debated very well, and he gained momentum more and more as his nomination progressed, and as the campaign progressed, and he eventually ended up with more than double the delegates that the second place GOP candidate Ted Cruz had by the time it was all said and done. So that's how Donald Trump clinched the nomination. Hillary had a much different story because she has more of this establishment working on her side. The reason Hillary Clinton currently has the nomination is not because people voted for her, but because of superdelegates. Even, okay, it's kind of hard to explain what a superdelegate is, but basically, instead of people voting for Hillary, there's a person who decides who they want to vote for, and that person is known as a delegate. So even though 1 million Americans could be worth one delegate, I don't know how the Democratic Party does it, but somehow they have one person who is basically worth 1 million people and counts just the same. So a bunch of super delegates that are a part of the establishment are voting Hillary Clinton. Even though based off just what the U.S. people voted alone, Hillary barely beat out Bernie Sanders by less than 400 delegates. But having all the super delegates on her side, Hillary Clinton was able to push herself way over. If you go to Google and search primary results, and you take a look at the Democrat tab, you'll see what I mean. Based on just regular delegates, Hillary wasn't beating Bernie by much. But with the super delegates, she was able to push herself way over. And being a part of the establishment and all gives her a huge advantage. So that's how I like to think each person claimed their position as the nominee. So if we take a look at today, the current polls say Hillary is ahead of Trump by, I'd say, about 4% nationwide. And this can be a bit misleading. It's hard to actually say it's hard to actually figure out who people are voting for, no matter the news source. News sources I'm starting to trust less and less these days because some are very liberal and typically side with the Democrats, and some are more conservative and typically side with the Republicans. For example, Fox has always been known as a conservative news source. In fact, in 2012, they declared Mitt Romney the winner the night of the 2012 election and had to apologize for their screw-up the next day. And then there's sources like the New York Times that are very liberal, and they're going to be saying that Hillary Clinton is way far ahead of Trump and is going to dominate him, even though it's going to turn out to be a lot closer. So with all that being said, it's hard to judge who is ahead based on what the news sources are saying. Plus, people in the polls are able to lie about who they're voting for. Some people might be saying they're voting for Hillary when they're really going to go in the booth and vote for Trump, and vice versa. I bet more people are scared to say they're voting for Trump than for Hillary, because saying you're a Trump supporter to the majority of people makes you look worse than if you say you're a Hillary supporter. You know, if someone says they're a Hillary supporter, some people will see why. But if you say you're a Trump supporter, liberals just think you're an idiot, even though they think they're the real, even though they are the real idiots. I'm totally kidding. I've already given my opinions of liberals. I'm not a huge fan of them, but that's besides the point. Okay, so it's hard to gauge who's actually ahead based on what the media is saying. The only thing that is concrete evidence are the actual votes. Media sources can't lie about the number of votes a state got in the primary. That's the only hard evidence that we have for this election. So, it's very, very hard to know who's actually ahead. Who knows? Trump might actually be ahead at this point, but seeing that most of the news sources are saying Clinton's ahead, it's very likely that she still is. Okay, so now I want to talk about how the election is going to go forward. Okay, so Trump gained a lot of steam once he was announced as the nominee, and then his polls went up for about a week, and then they kind of settled down. And I expect Hillary Clinton to kind of go on the same trend. You know, her polls have gotten way up, but once people just accept the fact that she's the nominee, I bet her polls are going to go down a bit, if that makes sense. So it's kind of hard to gauge what's going to happen over the next couple months leading up to the election. Of course, we need to see what happens to the Bernie Sanders supporters once the Democratic National Convention happens. I'm interested to see if they flip to Trump, if they stick with the Democrat Party and vote Hillary, or if they just decide to stay home and not vote. I assume there's going to be large chunks of Bernie supporters that do all three. One of the main things that I think is going to happen is I think the presidential elections are going, or not the elections, the presidential debates are going to change a lot of people's minds, and they're going to significantly change the polls. From what I've seen, I believe Donald Trump is more well-spoken than Hillary. I believe he is going to be able to out-debate her, and with each primary or with each debate that comes up, I see him getting closer and closer to beating her in the polls. I just don't see Hillary Clinton doing as well in the debates. So I see Donald Trump doing better, and but I think one of the Republican debates, I think it might have been the first one with Donald Trump, was the most viewed, I think it was like the most viewed event in CNN history, and predictions are saying that how did I get up here? Like, how do I get up the mountain? The predictions are saying that the presidential debates are going to be the most viewed CNN events of all time. So it's obviously a very strange election we have going on here. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the weird things that the candidates are doing in their campaigns. One thing Donald Trump has been getting a lot of over his course of the election is bad publicity. He's always in the news for saying something controversial or borderline racist. Whether you think it's actually racist or not is up to you. Sorry I keep coughing, by the way. I'm a bit sick right now. Yeah, whether you think he's actually racist or not, that's up to you. But, he's always getting bad publicity. But basically, I think this is a campaign strategy on this part. If you take notice of, when he says these controversial things, it's always when something important is happening to a candidate that is not himself. For example, one of the most recent things is that he told a judge that he wasn't American enough to give a ruling on the Trump University scandal. Now, a bunch of people are like, hey, that's very racist, but it might be a strategy, because that's the same day Hillary got the nomination. So rather than the news sources focusing on Hillary Clinton, he was directing the publicity more on himself, diverting the attention away from Hillary. And this has been happening for the entire election. He always got bad publicity at the beginning because he wanted to make sure people knew he was in the running for president. He didn't want the media to focus on these other Republican candidates. And even though I said there were 17 people running against him, I bet you can only name a few. Like, I know, like Chris Christie, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, Carly Fiorina, Marco Rubio, John Kasich. Did I say Jeb Bush? If I didn't, him. And then like Rand Paul, Bobby Jindal, and then there's a ton of candidates that I probably have never heard of before. And that's because the media was so focused on Donald Trump, you just totally forgot that there were other people for him to run against. So it's kind of used as a campaign strategy to divert the attention. So my guess is Trump is still going to try to act this way to try to divert the attention away from him, or to divert the attention away from Hillary and onto himself. Even if it's bad publicity, it's still better than none in his opinion. Okay, so now I want to talk about the whole women code thing, and I'm gonna try to make this sound as least sexist as possible. Basically, I think Hillary's shooting herself in the foot. One of the main reasons people like Donald Trump is because he's an outsider candidate. You know, he's not one of those political figures in Washington that's been dominating everything for the past, like, decade or so. You know, he's an outsider candidate trying to get in. And Hillary could be arguing that, no, we need a person who knows what's going on. You know, Hillary has the, Hillary probably is the most experienced candidate that, is running in this election. She should be arguing that, you know, she's the candidate that's in the know, you know. She was in the room when they were deciding whether or not to kill bin Laden. She was, the Secretary of State for a few years, you know. She could be arguing that, but when someone asked her, hey, people are voting Donald Trump for being an outsider, what do you think of this? She's like, I don't think there's anyone who's more of an outsider than a woman trying to run. And see, there's a problem with someone trying to say they're an outsider because they're a woman. And the problem with that is she's alienating half of the population of the United States. You know, when Trump says things against, you know, like Mexicans or something like that, when he says something against those parties, it slides by because he doesn't have the Latino vote at the moment. He doesn't have the minority vote at the moment. The majority of people voting for Trump are white males. So it's not like he's losing a ton of votes by saying those types of statements. But Hillary is saying, oh, I'm a woman, that makes me an outsider, and she keeps saying it over and over and over and over again. Some men are going to be voting Republican for the first time in their lives in this next election because of it. So I think that is really shooting her in the foot. I don't think saying that she's I don't think saying that she's a woman is doing her any favors. Okay, let me get some of... Okay, just had to defend myself from that guy. Okay, I need to get these chests. I'm gonna take a quick break from my, talk here. Need to control the middle here. Come on. Okay. Let me just get some of this, some of that. Okay, let's switch that out. I don't really see where they went, but, I will be... Oh, no, wait, I already have an iron sword. I will be making some more arrows because I just shot a ton off. And then I'm gonna get my inventory organized. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the Electoral College. Even though it seems like all of America is really gonna be deciding who's the next president, it's only gonna be a small percentage. For those of you that don't know what the Electoral College is, it's basically the system that the U.S. has to elect a president. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I'm gonna do my best. Basically, each state has a set number of points. So, let's take, for example, Texas, my home state. Texas has like 38 points or something like that. So, basically, how it works is, on election day, people go and they vote for president on election day. And, whichever candidate gets more votes wins all the points for the state. So, Texas has always been a Republican state. At least since the year 2000, it's been a Republican state for a very, very long time. So I'm going to say right now that Donald Trump is going to win, Texas. So he's going to get all 38 points. And that's whether he gets 90% of the state, 70% of the state's votes, or even like 50.1% of the state. You know, even if it's just over, even by a single vote, he'll win the entire state. That's how it works. So, what I think is going to happen is 40 out of the 50 states have pretty much voted the same way since 2000, you know? California's always Democrat, South Carolina's always Republican, Oklahoma's always Republican, you know, like states like Vermont and New Hampshire who are always Democrat. So, like, there's a ton of states I already know who they're going to be voting for in the election. But then there's states like Florida and North Carolina and Ohio where no one really knows what's gonna happen in those states. So leading up to the election, that's where both candidates are gonna do the majority of their campaigning. Even though California has more delegates than any other state, it'd be a waste of time for Donald Trump to campaign there because California has historically been a Democrat state. He's not going to win over enough people to clinch the state. If he did, he'd have this election locked up but he's not going to because, yeah. So anyway, with the Electoral College, you need 270 votes to win. So what I think is going to happen is I think if Trump plays his cards right and campaigns in the right states, he's barely gonna win the border states, the border or battleground states, whatever you want to call them. I'll call them battleground states because I think that's the official term. The battleground states, if he plays his cards right and gets like 52% of the votes in all the battleground states, he can win the election, because this 40 out of the 50 states are going to vote the same that they always have. And if he can just edge out the victory in these battleground states, he can sail right past Hillary in the polls. Now, it's looking at the moment that Hillary is currently doing a bit better in these battleground states. But, you know, as I said, we still have the presidential debates and the Bernie supporters and the VP announcements coming up. So all of those are probably going to change what's going on in the battleground states by a significant amount. So we need to see what's going to be happening there. As the election comes closer, probably like 2 or 3 weeks out from the election, I'm going to make my electoral college map, which basically means I'm going to do my research on how states have voted in previous elections and look at the current polls in the battleground states, and I'm going to lay down my current predictions for how each state is going to vote. And I'm predicting that Donald Trump is just going to edge it out in the battleground states enough to send him way over the edge. Okay. So with all that being said, I want to talk about the media right before the election. From what I've seen, there's a lot more liberal news sources than conservative news sources, which means all you're going to see in the media is how much ahead Hillary is compared to Trump. But here's what I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess the media, it's going to say for about the next 2 months or so, you know, Hillary's ahead by like 4 or 5%, you know, the same old stuff. But then once the presidential debates happen, once the national convention happens, I bet Hillary is gonna, for the Democrats, I bet Hillary is gonna pull just a bit ahead of Trump, but not by a significant margin. And yeah, I think Hillary is gonna pull just a bit ahead of Trump, even though Trump is gonna get some of Bernie supporters. I think both candidates, their percentages are gonna increase, but Hillary's is gonna increase by just a bit more. I don't want to fight on this bridge with the holes. It could be a very unfair fight here. And then with the presidential debates, I think Donald Trump is going to start to gain some serious ground on Hillary. And I have no idea what's going to happen because of the VP debates. This is red only? Okay. Okay, I got one of them at least. Okay, so yeah. I think all the polls are going to say Hillary is going to win right before the election, and then finally, Donald Trump's going to win on election day, and all the news sources are going to be like, what the hell? Oh man, I think my house has had a power surge. You might have heard the lightning in my microphone very quietly. Here, let me go back to the hub so I can, like, actually walk around and stuff. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I think Donald Trump is going to win right at the end. I think all the news sources are gonna say Hillary's gonna win by a couple states right before the election, and then it's gonna be like surprise on election day and Donald Trump's gonna pull ahead. So that's my analysis of the current 2016 election. Again, I could be dead wrong, and we still have like 4 or 5 months before the election, so anything could happen at this point. I've already given my opinion of the situation, and I hope Trump wins. But you know that is that is what it is. I've given my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm right or if I'm wrong or what. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching this. I'll see you guys next time.